Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
This Congress, and specifically this committee, understand the urgency of the moment.
Jared Isaacman, President Donald Trump's nominee to lead NASA, faced his second Senate confirmation hearing on Wednesday. In his opening remarks, the billionaire and private astronaut warned senators of the consequences of falling behind China in a new race to the moon.
This is not the time for delay, but a time for action. Because if we fall behind, if we make a mistake, we may never catch up, and the consequences could shift the balance of power here on Earth.
Republican Senator Ted Cruz, the chair of the Senate Commerce Committee that oversees NASA, sought assurances from Isaacman that he would prioritize returning astronauts to the moon.
We cannot lose the moon and lose the race to the moon to China.
Isaacman made his fortune in e-commerce and payment processing technology. He has flown to orbit twice on all private astronaut missions as a customer and collaborator with Elon Musk's SpaceX. On Wednesday, he rejected notions that he is a close friend of Musk, someone who advocated for his nomination. Here's Democratic Senator Ed Markey.
Was Elon Musk in the room when President Trump offered you the job?
Senator, my interview, my conversations with the president, and there were dozens of people moving in and out of the room, and I don't think it's fair to bring any of them into this matter.
So you once again, you're refusing to tell us whether Elon Musk was in the room that day.
Trump first nominated Isaacman to head NASA last December, but then withdrew his nomination in May after a falling out with Musk. He was renominated by Trump in November. If confirmed to the post, Isaacman would oversee some 14,000 employees and a roughly $25 billion budget that the Trump administration has proposed cutting by 25% for 2026.
Welcome back to Truth Thursday, folks. The Rob Maness Show's live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. Well, we are already living America's 21st century spacefaring future, and that future is bright and very exciting, as you just heard. Elon Musk said, and I quote, "It's time to go forth, become a starfaring civilization, be out there among the stars and expand the scope and scale of human consciousness," close quote. And paraphrasing him, he also said something to the effect that for human civilization to survive and guarantee that survival, we have to become a multi-planetary species, and we are on our way to do just that. The new NASA administrator nominee, Jared Isaacman, committed to not only winning the race back to the moon, but extending that plan out to Mars and beyond. It's not only a civilizational imperative, though, but a national security priority for us to be standing on the moon, greeting Chinese astronauts when they eventually get there. And they will. Isaacman also proved he's the man for the job with his innovative ideas on nuclear space propulsion. That's really close to my heart because I'm a big fan of that and an advocate for it. And restructuring NASA's role in the space capability effort, more closely partnering with commercial industry in order to do what? Win. To win. Because when America wins, freedom wins, and the ability to do these big things, it becomes more guaranteed. Mr. Isaacman just went through this second committee hearing, as you just heard, where he was voted out of committee for a floor vote, and my guest today was there at Mr. Isaacman's personal invitation. Sean Mahoney is a seasoned leader in the space industry, having served as CEO of Masten Space Systems and holding various leadership roles in industry groups. He's rejoined the Space Frontier Foundation board in 2022, and he brings his expertise in entrepreneurship and organizational growth to support the foundation's mission as the board chair. Sean, welcome to the Rob Maness Show.
My pleasure, Colonel. Good to be here. And I got to tell you, the first time I heard that quote about the impact of what it is we're doing in space, I was driving and I was new into the industry, and I'm like, I need to pull over because that really puts everything into a context. And it's the thing I think about. Not every day is sunshine and roses, and being able to put the work that we're doing into that larger context for all of humanity really carries some weight. But thanks for having me here, and glad to talk about the upcoming Administrator Isaacman and what's going to be happening on the moon and beyond.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. I think, Jay, I think Mr. Isaacman is the first civilian astronaut to hold a senior leadership role, maybe even any senior leadership role in the NASA organization itself. So I'm very excited about that. And look, I spent 32 and a half years of my life in the military and the government. So people might think that's kind of strange for me to say that, but that's because I have seen why the government is good at some things, very few, but some things, but not good at most things.
Yeah, the challenge there for the NASA administrator, and I've been around long enough to see a few come through. Being able to lead the organization, I think, is even more important than their technical acumen or their big ideas. That leadership of the workforce, not only of the direct NASA workforce, but also of the larger aerospace workforce, is really important. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, Sean, from your perspective, you were at the hearing and everything. What really stood out the most to you about what he talked about and his responses to some kind of tough questions sometimes?
Well, number one, he was unflappable. Like, there were some questions that tried to pin him down, and he seemed to be able to have good, clear answers without waffling. But he also didn't seem to fall prey to the trap. So he was, whether that is acumen or preparation or both, he was able to articulate what those things are that he sees that the agency needs to do, and also able to, voice his support for the direction that Congress and the White House are both going to be giving to that NASA administrator. So I think he did really well. I mean, I don't think there's anyone else that has had to go through doing two hearings for the same position, but it was clear that he has an interest and a passion. And to be honest with you, I thought after the first round he was going to be like, "Great, thanks. I got a great story to tell." But the fact that he stuck with it and came back around really spoke volumes.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's ever happened in history before, where a nominee was withdrawn and then renominated.
It's weird. Not surprisingly, things are weird. And in space, things are weird a lot. Even this was weird. So.
Yeah. So, you've been in the industry a while now, too. You're a leader in the space industry as the chair of the board for the Space Frontier Foundation and everything. From your perspective, how do you view the balance between commercial space industry and the forward-leaning vision that we need from NASA now, as opposed to what it's been in the past? And it's got a long and storied and not primarily successful history, but having been around government organizations before for a long time, they don't always get better, and we've seen that with NASA over time at times now. I sense, and I hear it from Mr. Isaacman, and I hear it from other leaders in the industry, that we have a horizon coming at us that we need to be prepared to go beyond, and leaving NASA exactly the same as it is not what's going to make us win in this space.
Yeah. And the industry we have today has come largely because people made decisions that they thought were advocating a virtuous position. So I don't think there's people twirling their mustache. The fact of the matter is, space development was really cool and really innovative, and then it was saddled with the need to do operation, and that juxtaposition of pushing and testing versus putting up national assets that you're not risking a satellite that you spent a lot of taxpayer dollars on and spent a lot of years developing. That tension, it drove U.S. launch out of the country for many years. And people don't even necessarily even know that. But fortunately, while there have been other billionaires that have tried to introduce launch and tried to break the cycle, it was now the work of the team that did Commercial Crew that said, you know what? In order for NASA to keep doing things that are at the edge, we've got to get the routine things to be done by people who are good at process and routine. And that's where SpaceX really was able to come in. They did things that others can't or won't, and was able to show that they can innovate and still deliver both. And that really has changed the game. So there's a lot of, our organization is one that originally coined the term new space. And then there was well, does that mean everything else is old space? There's different models to go about getting access to space. And it shouldn't be one model for all of them. So what we really need is NASA, the government. Government should be taking care of things where there's not any immediate market for financial return. But know that putting humans in orbit is something that there is a financial return for, because Russia demonstrated it. Russia had the ability. You could buy many of the initial private astronauts. Paid Russia to go, because the U.S. didn't even have that capability. Now you can fly on a American-made SpaceX rocket, but for many years, people were driven out of this country to go spend your money somewhere else. And fortunately, now things are coming back around. And really, it's just getting rid of the last vestiges of, oh, well, the government needs to do it. Right? It's going to be done well, the government. Yeah, and I get it. We look to the Apollo program. We think, hey, wasn't that great? But the model shouldn't be looking at the Apollo program. It should be looking at the arsenal of democracy. That's the model that we need, the engagement of the free enterprise to unlock all of this value.
What do you mean by looking at the arsenal of democracy before we get to our first break?
Sure. The idea, what happened with the arsenal of democracy in World War II was that it was industry leaders who went out and said, we're going to need you to change your production line. It was not government mandated control. It was government contracts and then private industry lining up and saying, yes, sign us up. We'll do a piece of this work. But it was not a top-down government said, this factory is going to make that and this factory is going to make something else. And that was in the evaluation afterwards. That was one of the huge differentiators that the United States had versus German production was still controlled from the top and they couldn't keep up with us. So that's the sort of thing to see Liberty ships to space.
I wanted to hear somebody that's not a military guy say that, because I harp on that all the time, my friend and Sean, and that is that we won World War II not because we had a large military industrial complex capable of producing weapons, but because we had a broad, deep, and innovative civilian manufacturing base led by innovators that didn't really care about the rules for the most part, and knew how to get it done. And that's where we started. And that's what I'm concerned about now. And one of the things I'm hoping that we can take advantage of from this new focus on space, on the commercial side especially, is that we now reestablish a manufacturing base, a civilian manufacturing base, like Elon Musk has done with SpaceX. And I know he's got a lot of government contracts and those kind of things, but it's primarily civilian manufacturing base, and that we need 150 or 200 of those types of manufacturing capabilities across the technological spectrum again, in order to really say, hey, we're back. And we can get this done, whatever this is. And in this case, we're talking about spacefaring nation and eventually a starfaring nation. Well, Sean, we got to take a commercial break. When we come back, we'll see another little clip, and it's about the moon race. And I want to dive into the national security aspects of that with you and get your perspective and what you think Jared's perspective is. It'll be, you'll see Senator Cruz again, this time talking about posters or something. We'll be right back with Sean Mahoney, Space Frontier Foundation.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work, try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home. Went to bed.
So do we have your commitment that you will not allow the scenario on the right on this poster to happen, that China will not beat us to the moon, that one of these heroes sitting in this room will set his or her, and as a father of two daughters, I'm particularly excited that Artemis is committed. It will be a her. The first woman will step foot on the moon, and she will be an American astronaut. Do we have your commitment that we will win the race to the moon and China will not beat us?
Senator, I only see the left-hand portion of that poster.
2 years ago, whatever was 100% of my traffic to my website.
Starships launch here on Earth. They have
show here. It's Truth Thursday, and Sean Mahoney, the board chairman of the Space Frontier Foundation, is with me. He's a friend of Jared Isaacman's and was at the second confirmation hearing there. And that was a little clip out of that with Senator Cruz talking about posters and his daughters going to the moon and those kind of things. And Sean, the Isaacman's responses, I think, were very strong. I appreciated that he recognizes the national security priorities issue of this. But I got to tell you, this Artemis system that NASA has been tasked to field, I think it's like, I don't know if this is exact numbers or not, but around $4 billion a launch. $4 billion a launch. I mean, I'm not an expert on this, but can't Musk do that a lot cheaper?
Yes. And not just Musk, but a commercial version can definitely do things cheaper. I'll put an asterisk on, Senator Cruz saying we cannot lose the moon. That was in the first clip. It was in this clip.
Yeah.
That is not about just who gets there next and plants the flag. I absolutely agree. We cannot afford, we don't want to live in a world where we've lost the moon, but it's not just through the tape and we're done. It is about what we're going to do on the moon repeatedly. And if we're just going to go to and then pack it up and come back a few years later, that is not going to win. And so I agree, and I'm hopeful. Senator Cruz has been a supporter of space, and I want to see him be a supporter of not just getting to, but really succeeding on the moon. And I can speak with a little bit of authority. I was one of the companies I worked with had one of those contracts for delivering things to the moon. So I know that there is potential, and I also know that there's an awful lot of unknowns, but the way to get there is by unleashing the power of free enterprise, not by mandating and controlling things from the top.
Yeah, that's what I'm concerned about. The Artemis seems to be a program that shadows something more like the Apollo program instead of what we need, which is not a technology development and testing phase, which we've really already done the big working pieces of that with the Apollo program. The really difficult stuff, the numbers about getting there, keeping people alive, getting down to the surface, getting off the surface, operating on the surface with even a vehicle, a wheeled vehicle, those kind of things. Those are big things that testing and development is really complete, with the exception of, the new technology pieces have to be worked out, but they have the solution sets to work with now. But what I'm talking about is an operationalized effort to not only get back to the moon, as you were talking about, but to colonize the moon. I will use that to settle the moon as another set of pioneers, because the moon has vast amounts of resources that we can exploit, and it has to be a permanent installation or a town, whatever we end up calling it, a permanent settlement there that is working, operational, and provides not only capability to bring things back and forth to the moon, but as a jumping off point to interplanetary travel and ultimately star travel, isn't it?
Yeah, and the explanation of the platypus being a animal that was designed by committee, the SLS Orion, to a certain degree, this is a lot of great expertise and a lot of deep expertise went into developing a plan, but that it had to carry everything with it forward, right? We're still, the SLS architecture is built on things that were used for the shuttle that was designed in the 70s. And so I understand the, interest in protecting some of our existing technology base, but the way to do that effectively isn't to just say, well, let's keep using that same thing. Like, look, reenactments are cool. I love going to see, a Revolutionary War reenactment, and I can learn things from it, but it doesn't mean those are the troops that I want out defending us today. So reenacting what was done for Apollo is not the sort of greatness that we need. We've got to be pushing the envelope in how we not just bring technical, but also process and business innovation to bear.
Yeah. From a technical side, Sean, what does that look like? Now, I've looked at, I think it was the Firefly that recently landed and operated on the moon. And then I think, did it launch again and return something back?
They have not yet. So our counterparts, the Chinese, landed on the far side of the moon.
Right.
We have not been there. And they brought something back. We haven't done that from the far side of the moon. But Firefly, this is a huge point. That is the first time that a group that was not a nation state landed on the moon. That is, and it's not easy, but it's also not the most, it's hard, but it's not, needs the entire, chunk of the GDP to do that. That is a phenomenal accomplishment, and it was done very inexpensively, and that's the sort of thing that can be done repeatedly when it's that inexpensive. So there are a number of companies that are part of that CLIPS program, and so this is, the term Artemis conflates a bunch of different pieces. The thing that I hear you're concerned with, and I share that concern, is the SLS rocket.
Yeah, the Space Launch System with the capsule.
Right. And so that is the piece that, Artemis is the overall program, and Artemis may continue. And I was a little bit surprised to see this in the president's budget request. He called in the human space flight. He said we should fly out Artemis 2 and 3 and then take the off ramp, retire that old architecture, and for the next Artemis missions, use a different architecture. And I got to tell you, I was very surprised, pleasantly, but surprised to see that, because for many years, people didn't want to bother saying that part out loud, because the antibodies would kick in. And I'm very appreciative that President Trump was willing to say that, and push for that. Let's move to a better footing for American dominance in the space arena, so that it is the values of the Western world and of the United States that are setting the pace, and not that of a communist China.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think that's why Isaacman's appointment and confirmation is very important, because he represents that vision that we have to do a restructuring of what NASA does, why it operates, what it does, and how it interfaces smoothly and seamlessly with the commercial industry as the commercial industry continues to grow. I mean, I think to date we only have one commercial platform, Musk, at SpaceX, that has delivered astronauts on orbit for working purposes to the ISS, I believe. I don't know if has Bezos done it yet. I know he's put people in orbit, but I don't think he's delivered anybody to an operational location like the ISS yet. And Musk has done that repeatedly for us. So absolutely. that interface, the new interface and processes and operations of NASA interfacing with the commercial side of this is the next step. Why is it? First of all, why did China go to the dark side of the moon, do you think? What's there that's interesting?
Well, if you think of it this way, if you were going to go and visit a Caribbean island, and that was the only place you had been on the planet Earth, how much could you say you had seen the whole thing? And that's, frankly, where we've been, society, humanity, on the moon to date. We've been in those equatorial bands because that's where it's easiest.
Yeah.
But they're going, that falls into the exploration bucket. Go because we don't know, right? We've not been to that far side. The poles are also particularly interesting. The expectation is that there are water deposits, and then water leads to a bunch of other things. And so that's there's still that exploration part, but not just scientific exploration for understanding the universe, which we get, but also exploration that ties into how we might harness the value of space for people. And the people right now are here on the Earth. Eventually, we're going to be elsewhere. But the idea of exploration in order to lead to utilization is the step that we need to be in. And NASA is great at the exploration for science. And some of that data we use when it comes to exploration for utilization. But that is the path that China is on. They are on the path of, we're going to go not just because of prestige, not just because we want to understand the universe, but because we're going to use the resources of this territory. And unfortunately, we're behind. U.S. is behind. We do not have a plan to counter China's plan for what they're going to do on the moon. We have discussions. We have a focus on the next person to land on the moon, but we don't actually have a clear plan that's articulated and that is executable. So if there's a magic fairy who grants us billions of dollars, those things could work, but that's not within a reasonable realm. And I really think we need more of a wagon train mindset than a Lewis and Clark exploration mindset.
I hadn't thought about it that way. Wagon train, yeah. Because well, the Lewis and Clark phase was in Apollo. To be honest with you.
Yep.
To be honest,
and it's great. We don't have to. Yeah. We do not have to impugn the past, but we also want to be just repeating it.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the areas I think we've got to do some work on is that area that's not sexy and not exciting, which is policy and international agreements, because I don't think our existing international space agreements fit to the needs of the nations as we start converging back on the moon You know, can somebody own something from a national perspective, and those kind of things? Is it going to generate conflict on the surface of the moon, or can we put something together to have agreements to assuage that and prevent it from happening? We've got to take another break, Sean. When we come back, though, I want to get into the expectations of technology, because Jared had a conversation about nuclear propulsion in space, and the next big bold project the United States can and should do. We'll be right back. John Mahoney of the Space Frontier Foundation.
Starships launch here on Earth, they have this whole stage 0, which is the whole tower with 1,000 people working on it under an atmosphere in 1G, and it still doesn't go always great. So, pulling off that operation to refuel and come home is going to be hard. I think the government can help with that by kind of working on what no one else is capable or willing to do. That's hard, the near impossible, which is start building nuclear electric propulsion, nuclear spaceships. I think it's absolutely the right mini Manhattan project for NASA. Get America underway under nuclear power in space. If you can do that, you take a lot of pressure off of the in-situ resource manufacturing. And then number 2 is...
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show, and we're talking about the 21st century in the United States and the world really becoming more of a spacefaring humanity and society and cultural civilization, because we have to go there, and we need to go there, and it's really dependent on the survival of the future of the human race to become multi-planetary and to eventually become a star-faring species. And that was Jared Isaacman talking about one of the things he sees as his vision at NASA that NASA's really good at, a big, bold effort to develop nuclear propulsion for spacecraft. My guest today, Sean Mahoney, is the board chairman of the Space Frontier Foundation, was at Jared's hearings by his invitation, is very familiar with the industry and what's going on. And Sean, that little piece there talking about space propulsion, what does that tech look like when it becomes something that can be operationalized?
It unlocks our ability to get to a lot of other places more quickly. And I didn't say this in the introduction, but I'm not someone who came up through the space industry. I didn't study aerospace engineering in school, which means I've got a slightly different perspective. I can see these things from kind of outside the space bubble. The fact of the matter is, there are solutions for how you move that have been unpopular from a political standpoint. And that's where, unfortunately, you say the word nuclear and everybody tightens up. And so right now, there are a couple of different ways that we do propulsion. And I've had to learn all of this recently. There's liquid, there's solids, like those are kind of standard. There's electric propulsion, which is things that are in orbit that literally are spitting out ions and using that in order to move. But if you really wanted to get some serious inertia into a body, nuclear is it's dense, right? It's a great energy source, and so all of the ideas about where we can go in the Earth-Moon system and beyond, they're all tied to the balance of energy. And if you have to carry, 90+% of the mass you are carrying as fuel, it doesn't leave you a whole lot for anything else.
Yeah, throw weight is a big calculation when it comes to putting things in orbit. I actually did take a orbital mechanics class when I was stationed in North Dakota in the wintertime and needed something to get my mind going. And it's because of this issue. And what Jared was talking about at the beginning of that clip was he was asked, well, how do you depart the moon? I think is what the question was probably around, or how do you depart the surface of Mars? One of the two. Because when you look at Starship's stack here, that's what he was explaining. How do you do that departure on the moon? You're dealing with, I think, 1/6 of the amount of gravity, but you still have a lot of hardware, fuel, and that level of technology that you have to figure out how to do that departure to go anywhere, whether it's back home or whether it's on to Mars or whether it's to a star. That propulsion system that you use from the moon and that level of craft is extremely important to figure out, because quite honestly, the Starship methodology of building this huge stack, I don't see it happening, not on an operational level, maybe as a test or an experiment to see what you can learn from it. But I don't see that being a long-term solution. Do you?
I think there are a number of different approaches, and a lot of them can work. I will tell you, I used to have engineers that would come up with a bright idea, and then one of the things we would do before, running off to go do it, do a knockout patent search. In other words, go look and see if someone else has already done it. There are a tremendous number of innovative things in space that people thought of in the 60s, but either it wasn't the path that was chosen, or the technology, the materials technology, whatever, wasn't there. So it's not necessarily a problem of coming up with a novel concept. It's really a question of, can you find a way to operationalize it? So I know there's a lot of debate about cryogenic in-space fuel transfer. I can tell you, I know people very well that are completely convinced that it's a thing that will work, and there's others that are completely convinced that it won't, and we need to just do it, and that will answer the question. The topic of, okay, well, what are these other forms of propulsion? Nuclear is one of those ones that we need to get moving on. And while I would love to say just let the free market take care of it, when you're dealing with nuclear stuff, you're going to need support from the U.S. government, from the Department of Energy, because you're talking about launching material that people reasonably could be worried is going to fall down your head. Those concerns, I think, are way overblown. And even things where you're not launching an isotope, still you get resistance because it has the word in it. And the politics of this, unfortunately, is still very, very, very thick. But the idea of bringing stuff back from the moon, and this is going to go back, one of the icons, your audience may be familiar with Gerard K. O'Neill. He's kind of the spiritual animal for the foundation. He envisioned a future where space is a domain of human activity. And to help answer that question, he actually demonstrated, it was called a lunar mass driver. So he built it here on Earth, and you're sending things back from the moon, because there's only 1/6 of gravity, you can actually use a rail gun and get things going, get enough energy into them that you can send things back from the moon just by firing it towards the Earth. which is really cool. And you may have read that in some sci-fi. And this is one of those areas where the science fiction and the reality converge. It really is possible. The numbers work. We just haven't done it.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, and I think the nuclear propulsion idea is extremely valid. And eventually, I believe that we should get the government out of that as much as we possibly can once we get this thing developed and tested as we begin operationalizing it, because the government handcuffs, so to speak, and guardrails will probably inhibit that further operationalizing of it if we don't figure out how to do that effectively and try to minimize and mitigate the impact of needing the regulation. I understand the concerns. Look, I've been working with nuclear weapons and nuclear materials since I was 17 years old, and I've advocated in the military for microreactors on installations, and I see the Army and the Air Force are both working on that project now. This is a necessary next step in the evolution to figure this out as one of the viable forms of propulsion that doesn't require the cryo transfer, which is that's the only thing about the future, the near future of space travel that I've heard about that makes me kind of wink and go, or squint my eyes and go, I'm going to have to really look at that and see how that's going to being designed to work, and whether I can be convinced it's going to be operational as an everyday thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Hey, as long as you're willing to update your prior beliefs when there's demonstration that it can work, that's great. I gotta tell you, people used to say you can't land a rocket. You can't land a rocket. I'm like, okay, well, first of all, there was a Air Force and a NASA project that did that. DCX already did it. So don't tell me it can't be done. And I flew these smaller ones. But then once you had a demonstration, SpaceX landing that, all of a sudden people stopped saying, oh, it can't be done. And so, great, update your priors. And, our approach to getting to the moon, when SLS was chosen, that was a decade ago. There were other options that were considered. For whatever reason, people chose a government-run instead of a market-based. In the 10 years since then, SLS has underperformed its expectations, and the market, the free market, has way over-delivered. So let's update our priors and just because we made a decision a couple of years ago, I'm not saying you were bad. Let's just update it and make the right decision now. Just because you made a decision 10 years ago doesn't mean you need to keep going down that path.
Oh yeah, I mean, look, I was in the B-1 bomber for most of my flying career, and the B-1 was built by Rockwell, and it uses a lot of the same computer boxes and systems that the space shuttle used. So I'm very familiar with that, the concept of, hey, you got to update this stuff, because when we were told as a young officer, our team was very innovative. We said, hey, it's time to update these 64K Commodore 64 computers that at the time a Pentium chip was out, and put Pentiums in. You know what the first answer was, right? Oh, we can't do that. And now it's on, the jet's on like platform. I don't know how many versions of it is, but it's all glass cockpit, touchscreen, and doing phenomenal work when America needs it to do that. Because we didn't take that for a valid answer. We kept pushing, and so did our follow-on brothers and sisters.
Heritage, right? It needs to be heritage. We need to know that it'll work. Well, if you need to know that it'll work, you can't have any failure at all, then you're never going to do anything new, and you're only going to use things that are old and have been around for a while. And I got to tell you, satellite industry broke out of that, right? There's now the iPhoneization of small sats. They get the service not by making one thing that is rock solid, but by having a series of them. And you can accommodate failure of individual satellites and still be able to deliver the service. That's the same, we've got to get out of the monolithic mindset. So I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious about the ion drives. I haven't really looked at that lately on satellites to see if how that's been operationalized and whether it's if folks are happy with the technology or not. Because that was a solution set when I was in orbital mechanics. Well, how do you maneuver the satellite to be able to reposition it, or are you just stuck in one location once you're delivered on orbit? Was a solution set that we were talking about in that orbital mechanics class that I actually passed. I'm a C student in math, so but we got to take a break. When we come back, we'll spend that last segment, Sean, talking about this industry versus government, how Jared's going to help move the country and probably the globe forward, and what the role of maybe SpaceX and those types of companies will be. We'll be right back with Sean Mahoney of the Space Frontier Foundation.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
Well, Senator, this is certainly a subject that I'm pretty passionate about. I do think it's NASA's job. I believe it's funded by taxpayers to explore the near impossible in air and space. And when they arrive at a major development and that capability is mature enough to hand it off to industry where competition can drive innovation and bring down costs. X-59 is an interesting example. There is some overlap with what Boom's doing. I think actually Boom is an extraordinary company. I'd love to see a lot more American companies trying to break the status quo and take on big, bold projects like that. I think NASA just needs a lot more X-planes, honestly. That was a really exciting one that we all had an opportunity to watch rather recently alongside the recent performance from Boom. But I'd love to see us have multiple programs that are exploring radical designs in airframe and propulsion. And when they do have those breakthroughs, not dissimilar to the 1970s, 1980s, when NASA was experimenting with fly-by-wire and thrust vectoring capabilities that have made their way in commercial aircraft as well as military aircraft like the F-22.
Do you think there's a problem with Quest eventually competing against Boom? Do you think that's a potential problem?
No, I would certainly hope.
I'd say the whole industry, not just Boom in particular.
I'd certainly hope not, Senator. I actually don't think NASA's at its best when it's doing what industry is doing, because at that point, talent would naturally probably gravitate to industry where they get the advantage of, who knows, appreciating stock options and such. I think NASA should constantly be recalibrating to work on that near impossible, what no one else is doing, which is going to attract that kind of exciting technology. That's going to attract that kind of talent to work on that exciting technology. When they figure it out, they hand it off to industry and they recalibrate to the next big, bold endeavor. I think that serves the talent, workforce, and the mission of NASA very well.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Truth Thursday. We're telling some truths about the space industry and the new 21st century approach that makes the United States truly a spacefaring nation, and really the human race, a spacefaring species. And my guest today is Sean Mahoney, the board chair of the Space Frontier Foundation, who was at Mr. Isaacman's hearing. And Sean, I think Jared was touching on something that he gets it, and I think most people that have worked with or for NASA, especially in the moonshot phase, realize that what NASA's really good at and the best at is what Jared was saying. The next new thing, the big, bold thing, to work at the edge of technology, to define it, design it, build it, test it, evaluate it, and then hand it off to, now we have the space industry, because of people like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and organizations like yours, that it can hand off that technology in a smooth and effective and coherent way rapidly now, and we can rapidly operationalize something new like that. Did I get that right? I mean, I think Jared's got the right picture.
Yeah, dead on. That's exactly right. The challenge that any organization, NASA is not immune to what happens when you have an organization that has been around for a while and it has developed, it is calcified in some areas. And look, I greatly appreciate having partnered with folks at NASA. The business that I ran for over a decade depended on NASA support. I thought when I got into it that there was a commercial market. It was a little bit early. And NASA was one of those organizations, the right mindset and the right folks at NASA. A lot of times, though, those were not the mainline folks. Those were the people who were trying to figure out how to make something work around the edges. Yeah. The fact of the matter is, if you've got a program that is going to be government driven, it's going to be government priced. And if you're not, it's not just having a service be available. It is having that culture change that allows civil servants to try different approaches, to be willing to use commercially available elements in their program. If everything is mission driven, we've established where we're going and what you need to do, and everything flows directly from that, then it's really hard to deviate. If you have something that's capability driven, we want to make sure we've got capability to get to the surface of the moon. Then what can you do with it once you're there? That's a very different mindset. And we have seen NASA move that direction over time, but it has not been the entirety of the organization. And it's not just NASA. It's also all of NASA's supporters on the Hill and in the executive branch need to tell NASA very clearly, go and do the really hard stuff and outsource anything that you possibly can. And we're not going to give you a hard time if you buy something off the shelf for 10% of the cost. We're not going to yell at you if that happens. So.
Yeah, and it can be done. I interviewed Dr. Chris Mattman, who is the CTO, CIO at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and worked on the machine language and programming language for the remote helicopter that flew off of the last rover. That's amazing. Yeah. That is a top of the line, leaning over the horizon, really an over the horizon piece of technology that is amazing. And there's no way that if you had to meet a bunch of government requirements that could have been pulled off. No way.
Yeah. And, there's not really a market for that. Like people that say, oh, well, my big business plan is I'm going to sell coffee on the moon. Great. That is a great idea. And at some point in the future, when I'm on the moon, I bet you I'm going to be really appreciative of a good cup of coffee. What we need right now, and this is, I'm telling your audience this, but this is really talking to the space audience, is we need those businesses that are going to harness the value that space can bring and deliver it to other industries, not just space for the sake of space. And that's where you may have caught some headlines about space-based solar power. There's a lot of things that are coming up, the idea of data centers in space. There are a lot of things that have real value, that's value creation today.
I'm glad you brought up the space-based solar power, because I've been reading about that for decades. And at first was skeptical, but I just read the recent article. Tell folks what that really means. And how real that is that it's coming, because I think it's coming.
I was like you. I was skeptical. I was literally steered by the shoulders away from the space-based solar power people when I got into the industry. But I've updated. The big idea is, instead of having solar panels that are here, you just put them all the way up in orbit. Okay, that sounds like that's expensive. And then how do you get the power down? There's a couple different ways. The same your Wi-Fi at your house is transmitting power wirelessly.
Right.
So you already have that. You have DirecTV. You know what solar is. It's not new. It's not new science. It is really just a question of, can you make the numbers work? And as launch prices come down and energy prices go up, you're at that inflection point. It makes sense now to have an orbital solar array, slightly different maybe than the one that you've got, but it's not exotically different. You collect sunlight and then you send it to where it needs to go. And so it's not just power generation, but you can also do distribution. You can you can send power to the earth. You know, you can set it up so that it's 24/7. Right? You know, solar is great as long as there's as long as the sun's shining. Well, the sun is always shining. It's just stuff gets in the way down here on Earth. So there are a number of companies, one that just came out of stealth yesterday, and the foundation stepped in a couple of years ago to say, hey, this is a great thing that the energy industry isn't really talking about. So we've been trying to make sure we're bringing in energy, environment, national security, diplomacy, all of those other parts of our economy to understand the value that a space-based solar world can provide. And just to rattle the saber, China's got plans on this as well. And
absolutely,
there's a future where China's Belt and Road stretches to power, and they're able to offer, because once they've made the investment, you know, that's they're able to say, great, we can deliver you cheap power, and then they also keep the finger on the switch to turn it off if you do something they don't like. I would much prefer a open market than it be handed over to the Politburo.
Oh, absolutely. You know, I can't help but think of Nikolai Tesla as we're talking about this wireless transmission of power and distribution of power. One of the things I wanted to ask you about, though, from a NASA and industry perspective is, and because Elon is on my mind a lot when I think about space, especially, is that Elon's a developer of big, bold ideas, too. And should there be, or will there be, I guess, if you know it, or should we expect that there will be a linkage between the development and testing side, the scientific side of NASA, and individuals like Elon Musk who have proven that they can do it too, and can maybe even do it better and cost effectively to help NASA do that part of its job that it's going to do more of?
That already happens. And I'll tell you a quick story. I lost out on a program working with NASA to do some testing because they were going to come out to our facility in Mojave and we were going to build a thing and do some testing. And meanwhile, SpaceX is landing rockets and they were like, hey, we have data from what happens when you come in nozzle first. So they just sold the data to NASA. I didn't get that program, but that was the right answer. NASA could have spent millions of dollars doing all this testing, but SpaceX has the data because they're doing it. And I think this is when I talk about the culture change, the amount of potential that exists for research about the universe is huge, but the systems over the last 50 years have become focused on developing very boutique sensors, and the focus has all been on, well, I've got to get my sensor approved so that I can get data. But the world's going to be different, and there's going to be a lot more data. It may not be the same like quality in each data point, but you will have a lot more of it. And that is going to, if embraced, that is going to fundamentally shift the way science is able to be done at NASA and throughout. So there is huge potential when you change out of the mission-driven, once a decade sort of thing, and it's much more gas and go. When you're ready to test, you go, like, it changes the pace of space entirely, and it changes, instead of our scientists writing applications, they can be working data and finding those discoveries.
Absolutely, man. Well, thank you so much for for coming on the show and discussing this. It's very important that folks understand this. There's been a lot of news around Jared Isaacman and NASA, and obviously Elon Musk, to get the truth out about and set expectations right. It should get people excited that these are good investments that are going to help our country and all of the human race, really, because that's what's always happened in the space industry, and I'm excited about it. Hopefully they'll take some 60-something-year-olds to the moon or Mars, and I'll be asking for a cup of coffee up there, since my call sign is Juan Valdez from the Air Force, and I flew a couple of machines that have flown or computerized and everything. I'd love to help join in at some point. Thanks a lot, Sean. Where can folks find you real quick, and how can they support you? And then I'll let you go.
Spacefrontier.org is the website. If folks want to make donations, want to volunteer, want to get onto some of the different mailing lists for the things that we're doing, this is an organization of individuals who are looking to make a difference. This isn't companies. And so the support is greatly appreciated, and you'll get a phenomenal return for the invested dollar that we can do here at the foundation.
All right. Thank you very much, my friend. I appreciate it. I'll get you back on sometime when we get some more breaking news and some new tech airborne and up in orbit and on its way to the moon, maybe, and maybe even Mars. Sean Mahoney, Space Frontier Foundation. More Monday, talking about the new national security strategy, the Ukraine-Russia peace deal, all the stuff war-related with Amber Smith, who is a former Assistant Secretary of Defense under the first Trump administration. You don't want to miss it. I'll see you then.